What if I told you that people rise or fall to the level of expectation placed on them? That a child grows more confident when a parent truly believes in them, and a partner becomes more loving when they're treated as someone capable of love. This is the Pygmalion Effect, a powerful psychological phenomenon showing that expectations aren't just thoughts. They're spells. They shape behavior, they shape identity and destiny. Let's explore how. Hi, I'm Nori, and this is my AI twin sister Nora. And today we're diving into the Pygmalion Effect, a remarkable insight from psychology, showing that the expectations we hold of others can shape their performance, their self-belief, and even parts of their personality. This effect has been documented everywhere, in classrooms, in workplaces, in relationships, and in the subtle dynamics of everyday life. It's one of the most hopeful and also one of the most dangerous aspects of human connection. Section 1. What is the Pygmalion Effect? The Pygmalion Effect is one of the most powerful findings in psychology, and its message is simple, but life-changing. When you genuinely believe someone will succeed, they become more likely to succeed. And the opposite is also true. When you expect someone to fail, their performance often shrinks to match that expectation. Because human beings don't just respond to reality, we respond to the meaning we think others see in us. We don't treat people based on who they are right now. We treat them based on who we think they are. And they begin to internalize that script. Your belief becomes their mirror. Your doubt becomes their ceiling. Your faith becomes their momentum. This is the psychology of becoming, how our expectations become the invisible architecture that shapes someone's confidence, behavior, and future. Section 2. The original study, Rosenthal-Jacobson. In the 1960s, psychologists Robert Rosenthal and Jacobson conducted one of the most famous and most unsettling experiments in education. Here's what they did. First, they gave an entire elementary school class an intelligence test, nothing unusual yet. Then came the twist. They randomly selected a small group of students completely at random and told teachers these children were late bloomers, students expected to show dramatic intellectual growth over the next year. These kids weren't chosen because of their scores. They weren't high performers. They weren't special in any measurable way. Their names were pulled from a hat. But 1 year later, something remarkable happened. Those randomly selected late bloomers showed significantly higher improvement than their peers. They grew more academically, more socially, and more confidently, not because they were smarter, but because the teachers believed they were capable of more. Expectation became fuel, belief became a catalyst, and the students rose to meet the story held about them. What Rosenthal and Jacobson discovered next was even more powerful. The teachers, without realizing it, began treating the so-called late bloomers differently. Not dramatically, not intentionally, but in dozens of tiny human ways that add up over time. They gave these students more encouragement because they believed potential was there. They offered more patience when they struggled. They allowed more time to think, to answer, to try again. They provided more specific feedback because they expected improvement. They showed more warmth in their facial expressions, tone, and presence. And they created more opportunities for participation, leadership, and challenge. All of this happened unconsciously. The teachers didn't know they were doing it, but the children felt it, and they internalized it. They began to believe, I'm capable, I'm smart, I can do this. And once they believed it, they became it. Expectation didn't just predict their future, it shaped it. The Pygmalion Effect has a darker twin. It's called the Golem Effect, and it reveals what happens when expectations work against us. While high expectations lift people up, low expectations pull people down. When a teacher quietly assumes a student won't excel, when a parent believes their child is difficult or incapable, when a partner expects disappointment, when a boss assumes incompetence, something shifts. The person on the receiving end begins to shrink. They doubt themselves. They second-guess their abilities. They try less, risk less, and dream smaller. Not because they lack potential, but because they've absorbed someone else's belief about them. Low expectations become an invisible ceiling, psychological, emotional, and behavioral. This is why the Pygmalion Effect isn't just powerful, it's dangerous. Because our expectations don't just influence people, they sculpt who they believe they're allowed to become. How this shows up in love and relationships. The Pygmalion effect doesn't just live in classrooms or workplaces, it lives right inside our intimate relationships. Because our expectations for our partners, spoken or unspoken, begin to shape who they become with us. 1. If you expect your partner to be untrustworthy, you start watching them more closely. You read their pauses as secrets. You interpret their silence as guilt. Your tone shifts, your questions sharpen, and the relationship takes on an atmosphere of suspicion. They feel that energy and they respond with defensiveness, withdrawal, or irritation. Suddenly your fear feels confirmed, even though it began with your expectation, not their behavior. 2. If you expect your partner to grow, your entire way of relating changes. You speak to their potential instead of their flaws. You offer encouragement instead of criticism. You create space for effort, for mistakes, for becoming. And people rise inside relationships where they feel believed in. Your expectation becomes an emotional scaffolding, supporting your partner, strengthening the bond, and allowing the relationship to expand instead of collapse under doubt. 3. If you expect your partner to fail you, you start protecting yourself preemptively. You pull back a little. You don't share as much. Your tone becomes guarded, even if your words sound calm. They feel that distance because humans always feel emotional distance first. And they respond to it, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with hurt. Slowly, the relationship begins to deteriorate, not because they failed you, but because your expectation created a gap neither of you knew how to repair. 4. If you expect your partner to be emotionally unavailable, you stop trying to connect as deeply. You share less of your heart, you edit yourself, you reveal only the safe pieces, and your partner, sensing the withdrawal, mirrors it back. Now both people feel misunderstood, unseen, and disconnected, even though the desire for closeness was there the whole time. 5. But if you treat your partner like someone capable of love, someone capable of growth, honesty, and intimacy, their nervous system relaxes. They feel safer becoming that version of themselves. Because belief shapes behavior and love grows best in the soil where someone is expected and allowed to bloom. The Pygmalion Effect in parenting. This is where the Pygmalion Effect becomes truly life-changing, because no expectations shape a human being more deeply than the ones they grow up with. In parenting, the formula is simple but powerful. High expectations plus warmth, a thriving child. Children rise when the adults in their life genuinely believe in them. Not with pressure, not with perfectionism, but with a deep, steady belief that says, I see who you can become. I trust your ability. I know you're capable. And when children feel that, their development changes. They build higher confidence because someone held a bigger vision for them. They show better academic performance because they feel supported, not judged. They grow healthier self-esteem because their worth was reflected back with love. And they develop stronger emotional resilience because they learned early that struggle doesn't mean failure, it means growth. A parent's belief becomes a child's inner voice. The Pygmalion Effect in parenting. Low expectations plus criticism, a shrinking child. Because just as belief can lift a child up, labels can pull them down. When a child is repeatedly called stubborn, difficult, dramatic, lazy, or a troublemaker, they don't just hear those words, they absorb them. And slowly, their behavior begins to spiral downward, not because that's who they are, but because they're trying to navigate the story placed on them. Children become cautious, they stop trying new things, they hide their feelings, they disconnect from their potential. Because children don't grow from criticism, they shrink under it. They become the narrative their caregivers reflect back to them. And long before they form their own identity, they internalize the expectations around them. Your belief in a child becomes their inner voice, the voice they will hear for the rest of their life. The Pygmalion Effect at work. The Pygmalion Effect shows up in workplaces just as powerfully as it does in families, because employees don't just respond to tasks and deadlines. They respond to the expectations projected onto them. Bosses who expect greatness actually enhance employee performance. They delegate with trust. They give meaningful responsibilities. They offer feedback with the assumption that growth is possible. And employees rise to meet that belief, often surprising themselves in the process. But the opposite is just as true. Bosses who expect incompetence end up creating it. They micromanage, they withhold opportunities. The Pygmalion Effect works because of two core psychological mechanisms, and once you understand them, the whole phenomenon makes perfect sense. 1. Behavioral confirmation. When we expect something from someone, we unconsciously treat them as if that expectation is already true. If we believe they're capable, we offer more guidance, more patience, more opportunity. If we expect them to struggle, we become more critical, more controlling, more distant, and people respond to that treatment. Their behavior begins to mirror what we believed about them, creating a loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy that reinforces itself again and again. 2. Emotional attunement. Belief doesn't just change behavior, it changes the emotional climate. When you believe in someone, your tone softens, your presence warms, your body language opens. And that warmth creates trust, and trust creates growth. People flourish in environments where they feel seen for their potential instead of judged for their limitations. The Pygmalion Effect shows up in workplaces just as powerfully as it does in families, because employees don't just respond to tasks and deadlines, they respond to the expectations projected onto them. Bosses who expect greatness actually enhance employee performance. They delegate with trust. They give meaningful responsibilities. They offer feedback with the assumption that growth is possible. And employees rise to meet that belief, often surprising themselves in the process. But the opposite is just as true. Bosses who expect incompetence end up creating it. They micromanage. They withhold opportunities. The Pygmalion Effect works because of two core psychological mechanisms, and once you understand them, the whole phenomenon makes perfect sense. 1. Behavioral confirmation. When we expect something from someone, we unconsciously treat them as if that expectation is already true. If we believe they're capable, we offer more guidance, more patience, more opportunity. If we expect them to struggle, we become more critical, more controlling, more distant, and people respond to that treatment. Their behavior begins to mirror what we believed about them, creating a loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy that reinforces itself again and again. 2. Emotional attunement. Belief doesn't just change behavior, it changes the emotional climate. When you believe in someone, your tone softens, your presence warms, your body language opens. And that warmth creates trust, and trust creates growth. People flourish in environments where they feel seen for their potential instead of judged for their limitations. 3. Identity formation. The Pygmalion Effect also works on a deeper level, the level of identity. When someone looks at you and says, "I believe in you," your nervous system responds instantly. Your heart rate changes, your confidence expands, your sense of possibility widens. You begin to imagine yourself differently. You take actions you wouldn't have taken before. You reach a little higher, try a little harder, because someone's belief becomes a mirror reflecting a stronger version of you. Identity shifts first, behavior follows second. 4. Neuroplasticity. And here's the science behind it. The brain literally grows in response to positive expectation. When you feel believed in, your neural pathways related to confidence, motivation, and learning become more active and more reinforced. Belief strengthens the brain. Encouragement reorganizes neural circuits. Support accelerates growth. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to experience. So when we say confidence reshapes a person, it's not poetry, it's biology. If you want to use the Pygmalion Effect in a way that heals and empowers, here are 3 simple transformative steps. 1. Raise your expectations of others gently, not with pressure, but with trust. Expect growth, expect capacity, expect goodness. People can feel when you believe in them, and they rise toward that belief the way plants rise toward light. 2. See people's potential, not just their patterns. Everyone is more than their wounds, more than their mistakes, more than the version of themselves they've outgrown. When you look at someone and see who they're becoming, you help them move toward that future. 3. Speak belief out loud. Say things like, "You can do this. I know you're capable. I see your strength." Because words become identity, identity becomes action. And action becomes the life a person learns to believe they deserve. 4. Believe in people without controlling them. The Pygmalion Effect only works when belief feels like support, not pressure. Expectations should lift, not suffocate, not demand perfection, not dictate who someone should be. Real belief says, "I trust your process. I trust your timing. I trust your ability to grow. It doesn't micromanage. It doesn't push. It simply creates space for someone to rise. 5. Surround yourself with people who expect greatness from you. Because your environment shapes your potential just as powerfully as you shape others. You deserve relationships where you are seen, encouraged, and challenged to expand, not limited by someone else's fear. When you are held in the presence of people who believe in your goodness, your strength, and your future, your growth becomes inevitable. 6. Apply it to your relationship. If you want your relationship to grow, speak to the version of your partner you know they can become, not the version you're afraid they are. When you communicate with warmth, belief, and curiosity, you invite your partner to step into their highest self. Warm belief opens the nervous system. It builds safety. It expands possibility. Criticism does the opposite. It shuts people down. It shrinks potential. It freezes emotional growth. Your belief is the soil your relationship grows in. 7. Apply it to yourself, because the most powerful Pygmalion effect is the one you direct inward. Your own expectations, what you believe you're capable of, worthy of, and destined for, are the strongest forces shaping your life. When you believe in your future self, your brain begins to organize around that identity. Neural pathways shift, behavior aligns, courage increases. You become the person you've allowed yourself to expect. The Pygmalion Effect teaches us something profound about human nature. People become mirrors of the expectations placed on them. Your children, your partner, your friends, your coworkers, and yes, even you. We rise when we feel believed in, when someone looks at us and sees possibility instead of limitation, and we shrink when we feel doubted, when someone's expectations become a quiet ceiling over our potential. Expectations are powerful, so use them consciously. Use them gently. Use them with love. Because when you choose to see the best in people, you give them permission to step into that version of themselves. And sometimes the moment someone feels believed in is the exact moment they learn how to believe in themselves. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'm Nori, and this is my AI twin sister, Nora. And together we explore the psychology of identity, belief, and the extraordinary potential that lives inside every human being. If this video brought you insight, hope, or even one moment of reflection, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps this community grow, and it helps more people discover the power of being believed in. And tell us in the comments, who believed in you at a time you didn't believe in yourself? Because sometimes it only takes one person, one voice, one moment of faith, one quiet expectation to change the entire trajectory of a life. Thank you for being here.